A devastating fire in Killarney made headline news this week. The inferno has emptied thousands of acres of national park of insect and animal and bird life, as well as vegetation. On Thursday night, 45 people were killed after a stampede at the Mount Meron religious bonfire lighting ceremony in the north of Israel. Pilgrims were visiting the tomb of a 2nd century sage rabbi. The Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is revered as a wise man, and a bonfire symbolizes the light or wisdom the rabbi shared with the world. Today's verse from Jesus about being thrown into fire will undoubtedly ignite fire and brimstone preachers. Located in the middle of Jesus' farewell address to his disciples in chapters 14 to 16 of John's Gospel, this text sometimes prompts preachers to mobilize their heaviest artillery of thunder and brimstone to invoke hell and eternal damnation. However, Jesus is not talking about hell as we have come to think about it, namely as a fiery place where people are consigned to eternal punishment after they die. Rather, what Jesus had in mind was what actually happened within a generation of his speaking this warning. Too many people were unconnected to Jesus the vine, so they were willing to follow someone else instead, who led them straight into the fire. Beginning in 66 AD, they followed Jewish leader Simon ben Giora into a military revolt against the Romans. And within 4 years, the Romans had utterly destroyed them. The Jewish historian Josephus describes what the Arab army under Roman command did in the area around Nazareth. And I quote Josephus, "The whole district became a scene of fire and blood, and nothing was safe against the ravages of the Arabs." This is the fire that Jesus is talking about. The tragic fire his beloved people had bring upon themselves by turning to violence instead of being connected to the source of life and love in Jesus Christ the vine. When people are unconnected to God's love, we simmer in our own resentment until we become combustible people. John's Gospel describes God's love as an abiding presence within us. John calls it God's indwelling love. When we don't abide in God's love, human beings become combustible in the sense that we readily follow leaders bent on violence and destruction. It is noteworthy that Jesus does not say God burns what is pruned, but merely that such branches are gathered, thrown into the fire and burnt. We are the ones who condemn and who burn. Abiding in God means being pruned. Even Jesus is pruned. Listen again to Jesus speak in today's Gospel. He removes every branch in me that bears no fruit. Pruning is the way of life, and bearing fruit results in more pruning. Pruning can sound threatening, but it shouldn't be. A good vineyard worker will tell you that the fruit closest to the vine is the juiciest and sweetest. So the vine grower prunes away the longer branches to keep the fruit growing closer to the vine, one also prunes the excess foliage so that more fruit can grow. We need to prune away the things in our lives that impede our bearing the fruit of love. Spiritual writer Henry Neumann argued that grateful people learn to celebrate even amid life's hard and harrowing memories, because they know that pruning is no mere punishment but preparation. My friend who loves gardening often says, the purpose of pruning is to improve the quality of the roses, not to hurt the bush. Note the powerful message from Jesus that only the dead vines are not pruned. Put it simply, to abide is to be pruned. Jesus is talking about the hell on earth we make for ourselves and for others when we are not connected to God's love through Jesus. Can we see what hells we might be encouraging or allowing today? What people are living in consuming poverty that is connected with our prosperity? How do we discern such things with an urgency befitting Jesus' warning? Consumerism stokes resentment, which can easily lead to the kind of combustibility we see all around us today. Can we fan the flames of love, not resentment? The way to do it is to prune away the things that breed fear and resentment, and keep our eyes on the bigger picture of God's way to bearing the fruit of love in Jesus Christ. We will only separate ourselves from the love of God by refusing to abide close to the rootstock and being too much in love with the things of this world. One final pruning clip. Maybe instead of fire and brimstone, hell is just a feeling of loneliness. Amen.